My friend Phil is around today with his new 2017 300, and what we're going to do today is put a RK Tek head on it. So we're going to show how to install that. So we've taken the seat and the tank off and just done a compression test, and it's reading 165 psi with the standard head on. So to remove the head you need to drain the coolant and then remove the hose and then take off the frame braces. Then you can loosen the head bolts and remove them and then take off the head. So I've loosened the hose clamp and then you can just pull the hose off. Then you can remove the engine braces. Okay, I've removed the engine braces. Now I'm ready to loosen the head bolts. Make sure you loosen them in a crisscross pattern. If you don't, there is a chance you could warp the head. And they're all loose now, so you can just remove them. Okay, I've removed all the head bolts, so now I can remove the head, and you can just tap it with a soft mallet to help it come off. And that's what the top of the piston looks like after 3.5 hours. So I've removed the O-rings and I'm just going to clean up the top of the cylinder where the O-rings sit to make sure they seal well. Here you can see the standard head and the RK head. The biggest difference I can see is the squish band is a lot narrower. On the RK head it's about 0.9 millimeters. On the standard head it's about 1.88 millimeters. So that's measuring from the this surface of the head down to the squish band. And I measured both the standard head and the RK head using a simple profiling tool, and you can see quite a large difference between the two heads. The RK head is the lower trace, the standard head the upper one. So it's not just the squish band is different, the actual profile of the dome is different as well. The RK Tek head comes with O-rings for the insert, so before installing them I'm going to use some silicone grease on all of the O-rings. Then when you've installed all the O-rings, you can install the insert into the head. Then you can install a spark plug to hold the insert in place. And it's a good idea to use new head O-rings. We're actually going to reuse the original ones. The bike's only got 3 hours on it, so the O-rings are still in really good shape. But I'm just going to put some silicone grease on them to ensure they seal correctly. The grease also helps the O-rings stay in position in the groove, so they don't move when you put the head on. So it's a good idea to put the grease on, even new O-rings. Okay, once you put the O-rings in, make sure that they're seated correctly in the grooves, and also make sure there's no debris at all on the cylinder sealing area. Okay, now you're ready to install the head. Make sure, double check that the O-rings are still in place, and there's two locating dowel pins, so you want to be aware of where the holes are in the head. Line those up when you install it, and you just need to pull out the coolant hose and then locate the head on and make sure it's sitting correctly on both dowel pins. I'm going to start snugging them down in a crisscross pattern. Then once you've snugged all the bolts down by hand, you can torque them to spec, which is 27 Newton meters. And do this in a crisscross pattern. And the 17 and newer bikes, they have a air bleed bolt here, so don't forget to put that back in. Then before you install the engine brace, it's a good idea to clean any old Loctite off the engine brace bolts, so I just use a die to clean that off. Then I'm going to use some Loctite 243, which is a medium strength Loctite, on the engine brace bolts. Then when you install the engine brace bolts, be aware that the bolts are different lengths, so the long bolt goes on the head and the shorter ones go in the frame. Then torque the engine brace bolts to 25 Newton meters. Okay, so we just did a compression test of the RK Tek head, and it's measuring about 212 psi, so it's quite a bit higher compression than the standard head. So we refilled the coolant, drained the air out of the head and the coolant system using the bolt, and that's the install complete. Phil's going to be riding this tomorrow, so I'll take some video and be sure to include some comments from Phil on how different it feels.